But we have some news to get to before then.
Mm.
And want to first say shout out to all of you guys who checked out my point guard big board video. Got a lot of support there. Just want to say I appreciate you guys on that. And one of the things that we talked about, or that I talked about in that video, Ethan, was the fact that Nikola Topic had re-injured his knee. And I didn't know all the details on the specifics of the injury, but I pulled up an
Mhm.
article in that video kind of explaining everything. He injured, I don't remember if it was left or right. I apologize there. But he injured his knee, midway through the season, was out for about 4 months. At first, it was supposed to just be 4 to 6 weeks, ended up being a lot longer than that. So that kind of shows you that, it was a little bit more of a serious injury than maybe anticipated. And then unfortunately, on May 13th, he re-injured that same knee, and there weren't any details that had came out about it. Actually, at first, it was reported to just be a knee sprain, so it
Mhm.
seemed like something that was minor, but it was in the same knee. But today, Jonathan Cavoni reported that Nikola Topic has a partially torn ACL in that same knee. So that's two injuries that, and another key context there, after he sat out for 4 months after the initial injury, it was only a month later that he re-injured it. And now we're finding out that it is a completely torn ACL. And I don't want to speculate too much. And if anybody in the comments has read more than me on this, please, give us the information. But remember how when we were reading his prospect profile, or not his prospect profile, but the his big board profile from last week on
Mhm.
our episode, and remember how they kind of made that point about European doctors versus U.S. doctors having different practices? I think he might have. I know that he spoke with a Spurs doctor. We're going to get into that as well. Jeff G Spurs Zone dropped a bunch of intel and talked with, like actually communicated with prospects and got their words, from the horse's mouth. And one of those was Nikola Topic. And he said he hasn't been before this, or I'm going all over the place here. Earlier in the day, Jeff G tweeted, and this was yesterday for context. He tweeted that Nikola Topic had not been in contact with the Spurs or anybody on their staff. And then later in the day, he released an article that said that he actually had talked with a Spurs doctor. So maybe that literally happened on that day. I'm not sure. Or maybe he found out later. Um, but with all of that being said, Ethan, regardless of his connections to the Spurs there, just an unfortunate look when you have the same knee injured and it's, you only play for a month afterwards and you re-injure it after being out for 4 months. And then on top of that, as much as it's not a full tear, it is still a tear of the ACL that is going to keep him out for a significant period of time. With all of that being said, what are your thoughts on the Nikola Topic injury news?
Injuries are always scary, especially when players are this young. To be that susceptible at 18 years old to not only get injured but re-injure it so quickly. Like even though it is a partial tear, it's still something that we should take seriously, in my opinion. Um, I know he's not an explosive player. He's not a guy that uses his athleticism that much. He's much more of a high IQ player. Uses his skills around the basket to get open and finish in creative ways. So the odds of him being like a Derrick Rose situation where this alters his career forever, I think is very, very slim. So long term, it doesn't scare me, the injury. But for me with the Spurs, like taking him at 4 or 8 to possibly not have him from at the get go. Like I don't know how serious his injury is. I don't know how long it's going to last or if it's going to affect his season at all moving into next year. I haven't read into it in that much detail.
He'll
Um,
probably be out for a significant period of time next year. Just
then for me it's a no. That itself is enough for me to stay away from Nikola Topic because I think the difference between him and the other guards that we could draft at 4 or 8 is pretty slim. So like there's no reason to reach for him or take him at 4 or 8 and stash him away for a year. And then there's always the re-injury concern because the best ability, Jude, is availability. So for this to be a concern already at 18 is enough for me to say no.
yeah. I mean, if you guys watched my big board, basically the reason that I had him at 3 was because of the injuries. This news, unfortunately, only adds to that.
Right.
Um, I really like his tape. I really like his upside. I love his potential. But when you have it's the same knee within, twice within a calendar year. And after he got back from recovery, he only played a month for it to get re-injured again in a worse way.
Hmm.
With the two picks that the Spurs have, and also like there's still four other guards.
Hmm.
that I would be very happy with, that don't have that injury history, that I think are worthy of being picked at 4 or 8. Given the circumstances, it's just hard for me to really see that, especially with all the Tijon Salon smoke at 8 as well.
Can I put you on the spot real quick, Jude?
Do it.
If it's at 8 and it's between Rob Dillingham or Nikola Topic to be our point
Rob
guard,
Dillingham.
you're taking Rob?
It's only because of the injuries. Like,
Right.
and the
I'm with
thing
that too.
and the thing is, like, you could maybe argue that Nikola Topic has a higher floor than Rob. But here's the thing that we've always said with Rob this entire time, Ethan. Like, his potential isn't, like, his ceiling is not dependent on his defense. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And with, just again, with those 2 injuries and an ACL tear to the same knee in the same calendar month. I know I just said that a little while ago, but I think it's worth repeating because it's significant. Um, yeah, at that point, I'm taking Rob Dillingham
Hmm.
because he
And
just doesn't have that injury history.
I know I said Topic isn't super explosive and that it wouldn't affect his career long term, probably, but I also forget to think about he is kind of a herky jerky player, and his lateral movement is so extremely important for him. Kind of like Manu when Manu would get into the lane, how he's not a smooth player, is what I'm trying to say. So that's probably also an aspect to why he continually gets injured like this.
Yeah, and I got to give a shout out to our guy Drew King, who has covered Rob Dillingham himself, and he says I'd take Rob over Topic at 8 10 times out of 10. And we actually texted a little bit earlier today, and I think Drew sees the upside with Topic, but when you factor in the injury news we got
It's
today,
tough, man.
I really feel bad for him because I don't have anything necessarily in his game that I'm
Hmm.
criticizing, but I just feel like, I mean, I feel like Rob Dillingham's a safer bet at that point. He played a full season in the SEC despite the frame deficiency and didn't have any injury history.
Only silver lining I have for Topic in this injury is like he can do the LaMarcus Aldridge, go sit in a chair at the free throw line and just practice jump shots sitting down. And maybe by the time he comes back to the NBA and he's ready to play, he's a sniper, and that part of his game isn't like at all a worry. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, that's the only thing I can think of.
and also him going to a more competitive team as well.
True, very true.
But yes, Ethan, any final thoughts on the Nikola Topic news today?
It's tough, but I think that this eliminates one player from possibilities. I think for the Spurs.
I completely agree. And just to clear up some of the confusion that we had earlier, I'm going to bring up Jeff G's tweet. I misremembered that a little bit. So his initial tweet yesterday on June 4th said, Nikola Topic tells me he has not had any contact with the Spurs, but the Spurs team doctors have acquired about him/his health. So that is what's the word? The confirmed version of what I
Mm,
was trying to say earlier.
there we go.
And oh my goodness. See, this is the new setup, Ethan. I didn't even mean for it to
Oh,
be
this is
this way.
cool. This is cool.
I kind of like it though. Look at the background. Yeah,
Yeah.
but there is the tweet right there.